Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and this is the first video in a series that I will hopefully be starting and having regular uploads for. Basically, the premise for the series is I just wanted to start reading more, and I have been reading more, but I also figured that one way I could sort of motivate myself to read more is by doing little reviews on my YouTube channel where I talk about all the books that I've read. So then I sort of have a catalog of all the books that I've read, and I can talk about them and share the books with you guys. So I guess the one thing I'll say is I'm going to try my best to avoid having any spoilers in the video, but other than that, we can just jump into the book that I read. So then, what's the first book that I read? Well, it is this. It is Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes by Scott Cawthon and Kira Breed Risley. I hope I'm pronouncing those right. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to read the back real quick, because the back is probably just a better synopsis than I could give. So it says, 10 years after the horrific murders at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that ripped their town apart, Charlie, whose father owned the restaurant, and her childhood friends reunite on the anniversary of the tragedy and find themselves at the old pizza place, which had been locked up and abandoned for years. After they discover a way inside, they realize that things are not as they used to be. The four adult-sized animatronic mascots that once entertained patrons have changed. They now have a dark secret and a murderous agenda. So, this book is actually the first book in a trilogy, so 3 books in the series, and obviously the books are based on the Five Nights at Freddy's game series, but the plot of the book trilogy is actually completely separate from the plot of the games. So, even if you're familiar with the game series, you'll notice some similarities between the games and the books, but you can also tell that the books are very different from the story happening in the games. I have some notes in front of me, so if I'm looking down, that's why I'm looking down. It's because I'm referring to my notes. So the book takes place in Hurricane, Utah, and it follows mainly Charlie, who is the main character, but it also follows her group of childhood friends that the back of the book talks about, and those are Jessica, John, Carlton, Lamar, Marla, and Marla's little brother, Jason. That is a lot of names, and one of the things I normally struggle with, whether it's books or just meeting new people, is names. But actually, I found that this was like the perfect amount of characters. So every character feels like they're important and like they're there for a reason, but it's also not too many characters to where you can't even tell who's who anymore. It's just the perfect amount of characters. One thing that I found really nice about this book was that there was a lot of detailed description throughout the book, so it made it really easy for the reader to visualize exactly what the characters were seeing. Lots of very descriptive and very specific details, which I found to be really cool and really useful as the reader. All right, this next note I have here is a little bit long, so I might be looking down a bit more, but the book does a good job of integrating all of the horror elements. Obviously, it's Five Nights at Freddy's, so there has to be some horror involved with it. Um, it's clear that a lot of care was put into making sure that everything was right with the horror, and that's something that Scott Cawthon tends to do with his games, is making sure everything's just right. There are these occasional sort of like hallucination sequences or dream sequences, I don't know what you want to call them, but one of the great things about them is that as the reader, you don't even suspect that it's a hallucination, because obviously with all the crazy stuff that happens in the franchise and in the book, certain things it just seems like, oh, I guess this is happening now, but then the character in the book will snap out of whatever vision they were having, and then you as the reader are also like, oh, that wasn't happening, that was all in their head, and so it sort of gets you in the head of the character as well, which is another thing I thought was really cool. It really helped me feel immersed while I was reading the book. Just some other quick notes here. I wrote that the book never really dragged, so it always felt like there was a constant sort of rhythm to it. I never felt like there was parts where it was like, oh, this is boring, nothing's happening. There was always something happening, which was really nice. The moments of suspense were really good, and during those moments, I always wanted to keep reading. It was like, sometimes the book will try to be suspenseful, but you're not really invested, and so you don't really care. But this book does a good job of making you invested in all the characters in it. So when something happens, you want to know, oh, is this character going to be okay? Whatever, right? I thought that was really good. Just as you would suspect from any sort of horror slash mystery book, there were some good twists and turns throughout it, which were very fun to read and discover the plot as I went through. The only criticism that I can kind of think of is that personally, for me, near the end of the book, certain aspects started to feel a little bit repetitive, but that didn't really take away from the overall story. Overall, the story was great. Just at the end, certain things seemed like, I'm sort of sensing a pattern here, that type of deal. Overall, this being the first book that I've read in a while, I give it, like, we'll say an 8 out of 10. And maybe we'll have, like, text here. 8 out of 10. For Five Nights at Freddy's, The Silver Eyes. Hopefully you guys can see that cover and it's not glaring from the lights. Like I said, it was the first book that I've read in a while, and it was super fun and pretty short. You can see it's not that thick, so it was just basically the perfect book for me to be the first book that I picked up in a while. Yeah. And I do plan on reading the other 2 books in the trilogy. Those will probably be the next 2 books I review, seeing as I'll probably just review books as I read them and take notes. I didn't really take very specific notes on this book, but if there's a book that maybe is a bit more in-depth, or maybe if it's sort of a non-fiction informational book, I might take more specific notes, and then in that case the review might be longer. But so yeah, anyways, overall, the book was great. Really enjoyed it. 8 out of 10. And that's all that I really have left to say for this little book review here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. There should be more reviews coming in the future. I'm actually already halfway done with the second book in the series, so I imagine I'll be done within the next few days, and then the little review video will come out within a few days as well. Alright, that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.